morning, ladies and gentlemen. What's up and what's going on, traders? Welcome back and happy, freaky, fantastic, funky, fresh Friday. Yeah, that's right, baby. It is Friday, July 28th, and we got one day left this week. Obviously, it's Friday. We got 2 days left of the month. We got today, ladies and gentlemen, and then we have Monday. We'll conclude the month of July. So you guys know the drill. What's the drill right now, baby? Right? To end the week strong and profitable, to end the month strong and profitable as well. You got 2 days left. And guys, preserve your capital. I mean, that's really the goal here, right? I do not want to see you guys coming in, being super aggressive, taking big losses, and then ending your month, break even, red, or giving back 50% of your profits that you're up. The goal towards the end of the month, guys, is obviously still look for great opportunities, take great trades, right? Make money. But don't over leverage yourself. Don't get too aggressive and don't start giving your profits back. The goal is hold on to those profits, preserve that capital, right? End the month strong and profitable. And that's the goal for today. We are going to end the week strong and profitable. We're going to end the month strong and profitable as well. And again, we got about 2 days left. So without further ado, team, let's dive into it. Again, good morning. Happy Friday. We're diving into what we call the pre-market rundown, where you guys show up with your top stocks for the day. We review those, make sure you guys are prepared, dialed in, and ready to attack this market. And then we follow up with the morning game plan session. I review my top stocks for the day. We always go over the SPY, the Qs, my top option plays for the day, and then my top penny stock plays for the day as well. We dive into that right before market open. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive into it. What are you looking at? What can we take a peek at? And again, making sure that you guys are all set, ready to attack this day. Let's dive into it, guys. Jay Doss, what's up, brother? Good morning. AJ, Glenn, Dave, Susan, Stir, Corey. And I know we got a lot of other beautiful faces here inside of chat as well. So again, good morning, team. Drop those stocks inside of chat and let's make it happen. Anything? Oh, here we go. Jay Doss starting off strong with Baba. Let's go take a look at Baba. Baba, black sheep. All right, Baba. This thing's been, just consolidating the past few weeks. Kind of sitting down here against that 20 EMA. Nice little pop on up here Monday. And then it's just still kind of been sitting sideways. I mean, this entire week. And it has yet to really get that break up over that 99.15 level, right? So, at first glance with BABA, I looked at it this morning and there's really not a lot going on here with BABA, at first glance. And you guys know how I approach the market and how I approach my watch list is I start with the daily time frame. And do I see anything on the daily that stands out? Are we at some key levels? Is there a setup on the daily, right? Is there anything that stands out on the daily to where I go, that looks good? I mean, if that's my knee-jerk reaction, I'm like, okay, let me go actually dissect this and get prepared for the day. But if I look at a stock and I'm like, I don't really see anything, I move on, right? So that's how I go about things. And, honestly, at first glance, there's really not a whole lot yet that stands out to me with BABA. But what I do see is this leg up on Monday, and then it's been consolidating the past few days. You can't really see it here on a daily, but if you dial this back into like a 4-hour or an hourly time frame, this could be like a bull flag, right? We could have like a higher time frame bull flag, here on BABA, because we see that rip on up on Monday with high volume, 3 days of consolidation, building higher lows and lower highs. We can see that there on the daily, but it's not super clear. So let's take that down into a 4-hour time frame and just make sure we really see like a bullish flag, right? Again, you're looking at Monday and then that consolidation. And I mean, I guess kind of, right? You have that pop, you are consolidating, you are putting in higher lows. Let's take that back into a 1-hour time frame. And now you really don't see a whole lot. You know what I mean? It's not super clear. But let's go ahead and turn off pre-market, post-market data real quick, just out of curiosity, right? And we're just going to shut pre-market, post-market data off and just look at how it's been developing. And yeah, even when you dial this back down to a lower time frame, there's definitely no bull flag or anything like that, right? So let's turn on our extended trading hours again, right? And let's just start with that daily time frame and identify like our key areas. Like where can we see the stock go? What levels need to break, etc., etc. So, the first area that I see, would have been this gap level. But I mean, the gap was already filled. We have this gap right there that was filled, but gap fills are still going to be areas of resistance. I mean, this whole area right here is going to be some upcoming resistance on BABA, right? That's going to put you right around like 99 bucks. And that makes sense. It's a psychological level of resistance. And then we know BABA has room to 100. And we know 100 bucks is a very strong level of support resistance. And so, yeah, if we come up to 100 bucks, it may have a hard time breaking above. So we know we have some resistance right around 99. Look left, previous gap level that was filled. Extend that out to the right. It's definitely an area that could be respected again as resistance coming up. And then 100 bucks. And then let's look left. Where is some support? Here on BABA. I would just come back down and look at some of these prior lows, right? We have, again, Tuesday's low. Then we got Wednesday's low of the day down here around 94, like 80. So you have a little bit of support down here around this like 94.80 level. And if you extend this out to the right, or I'm sorry, to the left, you see that it was prior high a day, prior low of day, prior high a day. So we can see multiple touch points in this zone, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 different times we've hit this level as support or resistance with a low a day or a high a day, and we've respected that level. And again, that's right around this 94.60 to 94.80 region here on BABA. So these are the levels that stand out the most to me, right? The highest probability level of support and resistance. And then we just go into our 5-minute time frame and say, all right, where are we at? Well, BABA is gapping up, but we're actually still gapping up, but we're gapping up below this level of resistance. So BABA just has a lot of resistance overhead, right? A lot of resistance up around 99 bucks. And even if we're able to hold 99, there's a lot of resistance at 100 bucks. So I would say with BABA today, since we've identified this previous gap zone that still could hold up as support resistance, I would say let's keep that level on watch. And if we see BABA come inside of that level, right around $99, and we can't break up to 100 and we fail to move higher, this could be an area where you look to get shorts inside of this zone of resistance for this drop on off, right? Because BABA is gapping up today, but we're still underneath resistance. So we're gapping up. Let's say we open, push into that zone of resistance and fail to break higher, and we start to roll on over. Where could we go? Well, back down to fill the gap, right? We are creating a pretty big gap here on BABA from yesterday's close to where we're going to be opening. There's going to be a gap here, right? And then again, you have a lot of this prior support down around that 94.60 to 94.80 level. So if we cannot break through this zone, right, of resistance, which the top end of the zone is 99.19. If we can't break through this area and we start to roll out of it to the downside, we could look for some put contracts for a nice drop on down towards around 95 bucks, and then a little bit lower down towards around like that 94.60 level. Right? So that'd be like trade idea number 1 on BABA is like, yeah, if that zone holds as a resistance, then hey, we can get short. But if we come up into that level and we see it actually turning into support and we see a break and then we start retesting this resistance level and we retest it as support, right? That's a break and retest strategy. We could look to get long up to 100 bucks there on BABA if this zone actually turns into support. If we break above it, pull back into it, right? So with BABA, that's all I would really be looking at today. And again, looking at the daily time frame, we don't have a daily time frame setup, a higher time frame setup. And what I like to do really is look at the daily time frame. Do I have a higher time frame setup? If the answer is yes, I really dissect it, right? Could BABA move today? Is there potential? Absolutely. But again, I really like to see higher time frame setups as well, because that really just adds a little bit more validation to the trade and higher probabilities that there could be something that really happens today with this stock based on what we see on the daily. And then we just simply narrow it back down into those lower time frames and just wait for confirmation and wait for some great setups, intraday. But that would be what I see on BABA and how I would look to approach BABA today if I was going to keep it on my watch list. William, what's up, brother man? Good morning. Looking at ticker AI. Let's go take a peek at AI real quick. Yeah, so AI, pretty big drop yesterday. All right, we gapped up, hit all of this resistance on AI, and then just dumped on off. So we can see that AI is having a really hard time breaking through all of this resistance here, right? And there's a lot of resistance between like 42.25 and 43 like 70. And I mean, the last couple of weeks, especially, we keep coming up inside of this zone and getting rejected, coming up inside of it, getting rejected. Yesterday, gapping up, pushing, looking to move higher, getting rejected. So there's a couple strong rejections here on AI. And yesterday was the strongest, and it was backed up with an increase in selling volume as well. So that looks pretty bearish. And at first glance, I would almost say like, hey, we could see a continuation to the downside today, right? See some of that volume and selling momentum from yesterday bleed into today, right? And see another leg down. But here's the deal. You have a lot of support nearby. So like, even if we get that continuation move to the downside, it's like you're coming into a lot of support, like down around 36 bucks. So how much opportunity is there really? Is there a lot of potential to see the stock drop where we have really, really good reward compared to risk? Well, really what we're looking for on a continuation day is a new candle to fall below the previous day's low, right? So like right here, here's an example of a pretty strong rejection, and we get a crack below that previous day low and drop even further, right? Continuation day, right? I mean, this thing is just absolutely dumping. We open, crack below, and fall below the prior day's low and dump even further into our next levels of support. So, I mean, that's what we would be looking for today, is for AI to crack below yesterday's low of day to get the next leg down. Where are we at right now? We're actually gapping up just a little bit, which is okay, right? Because here we gapped up and still dumped. Here we gapped up and still followed through and saw that continuation to the downside. So that's perfect. Let it gap up into a level of resistance and then start to roll on over. And I see a lot of resistance on AI right around this zone here. Let's like really dial this in, but we can all see there's a lot of touch points. High a day, high a day, high a day, low of day, low of day, high a day, low of day, right? There's some significant points right around this 39.20 to 39.38 level here on AI. So like we can clearly see that this is going to be an area where we hold up as maybe support, resistance. There's something that's most likely going to happen, right? We're going to see some kind of price reaction at that level, right? There's multiple touch points. It's definitely an area that stands out to me. So it's like, all right, cool. That could be resistance. Where are we at right now? We're actually inside of that zone. And we see that we kind of stopped moving higher once we got inside of that zone. And we've been just kind of, consolidating, sitting sideways for a little bit. So with AI, and I really want to make sure this level is just super dialed in, guys. And you may be able to bring it up just a smidge more. No, I think we have it pretty dialed in right here. Yeah, so I mean, here's how I would look to play AI. There's like two ways you can play AI today. Way number one is look and see if this zone actually holds the stock down as resistance intraday, right? So like by the time we open, maybe we open like right here. And if we come up inside that zone and can't break through it, like get puts early, right? Get short early for the drop down to yesterday's low of day, which is at 37.76. And then if we get that continuation to the downside today, we just need to see the stock crack below yesterday's low of day. And then we could see that continuation down into our next level of support, which is going to be 36.47, right? Up against this previous daily low. And it's right around the 50 SMA as well. Put you down around like that 36.47 level. All right. So that's way number one. It's like, yeah, if we're below this zone and we see it turn into resistance and we start to roll on over, yeah, get short up here at like 39.40 and then take it down into yesterday's low of day. And if we do see that continuation, then you could hold a runner down to that 36.47 level, right? But let's say you never have the opportunity to get short here. Let's say we open right here, for example, and we just start to come on down to yesterday's low of day and we crack yesterday's low of day. That's fantastic, right? That shows us that we've made a new daily low, and we could see some of that selling momentum from yesterday really bleed into today and get that next leg down. So at that point, with this trading idea, it's like maybe you don't get short here at this really nice level of resistance. Maybe you have to wait for the crack below yesterday's low of day and then wait for it to bounce back up and retest that level as resistance. So let it fall below yesterday's low of day first, let it come back up and test that level as resistance. And if we see that type of setup, that's where then you could look to get short for that leg down to that 36.47. But it really depends on where the thing opens and how it develops and how it sets up, right? You may not get a short here, but you could still get a short below yesterday's low of day if you see a crack and retest, and you could definitely see that next leg down. Right. And this zone is pretty significant too. Like that zone that we identified on the daily, right? It's respected several times. Look at all of that resistance here on Tuesday. Look at all of that support here on Wednesday. Look at how we held that zone as support yesterday, right? That blue box that we just identified right here on the daily, right? We didn't look at our intraday chart yet. We identified it on the daily time frame. We can see that just over the past few days, it's been respected again several times as support and resistance. So, I mean, it's a pretty key area that stands out to me. So, that would be the primary area that I'm really watching on AI is this zone between, again, 39.20 to 39.40, right? If we're below this, okay, as resistance, that's where we want to look to get shorts, okay? But we could see this zone turn into support and maybe push higher, right? That's definitely a possibility. But I mean, looking at that daily time frame, I don't know if I'd want to get long because yesterday was a pretty massive day to the downside. You know what I mean? Strong volume, big time rejection. That's a big bearish candle. And, we've seen this time and time again where you get a big, strong rejection and you see the stock follow through to the downside. So your best bet, in my opinion, is to wait for a good short setup. Personally, I wouldn't want to trade it long, but again, I don't want to give you any kind of like bias analysis because that's not what this session's intended for. It's to give you unbiased analysis so you can get prepared, right? But again, like if I were looking at AI today, I would say, you know what? That was a pretty big red day with an increase in volume. Statistically, we do see some of that. In the past, we've seen stocks continue to follow through and some of that prior day momentum bleed into the next day, especially when you have a very strong bearish candle like this. And so what I would do is say, you know what? It could be a good long today, but if it sets up short, I think it would be a better short. So I'm just going to sit back and wait to see if it sets up for a short. If it doesn't, I have no trade, right? But if it does, hey, we have some great opportunity to the downside, and the daily suggests another leg down as well. All right. So that would be what I see on AI and kind of how I would approach AI if it was on my watch list. But again, I like to come in very unbiasedly. If we are able to break this zone and it turns into support, right, you could see this thing push back up to that $42 level. You can see it all the way back up towards around 42 bucks. So maybe you want to play it long if we hold that zone as support. Okay, play it long. You have room up towards around 42 bucks today. They're on AI, right? And then BA as well. So BA, let's take a look at BA real quick. I looked at it this morning, same thing. Nothing that really stood out to me. I mean, yes, we had a gap up yesterday, right? We put in a little bit of this spinning top doji on the daily. And so this could indicate a possible reversal, right? You had a big green day. Thank you, earnings. Gap up, red day, spinning top doji. Now, the one thing that stands out to me is the volume, right? Typically, if we're going to get a strong daily reversal candle, such as a spinning top, we want to see it backed up with volume. We actually see a strong decline in volume yesterday, right, compared to the previous day. So we may not have a significant enough, doji candle here on the daily that really suggests we're ready to start dropping on off, right? Because the volume actually down about 50% compared to the previous day. So all I would do right now with BA is mark up BA's low of day from yesterday and yesterday's high of day. And these are going to be your two key areas of support and resistance, right? So you already know that if BA comes down into yesterday's low of day, It's going to do one of two things, right? Number one, it's going to hold that level, give you a confirmation that it wants to bounce. You play calls for the bounce. Pretty simple stuff. Comes down to yesterday's low of day. It doesn't give you confirmation for a bounce. It cracks that level, comes back up and retests it. Then you look to play it short for the leg down. Pretty simple stuff, right? And so that's what I would do on BA is mark up yesterday's high a day and yesterday's low of day. The two easiest ways to look to trade BA is number one, get short at yesterday's high a day for the leg down. Okay. Or if it comes down to yesterday's low of day, look for a bounce, then get long for the bounce on up, right? Super simple stuff. But if resistance breaks and we see a move higher, how high could it go? And if we see support crack and we move lower, how low could it go? Because that could happen as well. So now we need to look left and say, all right, where could BA go? Let me remove these drawings. Where could it go if we are able to break yesterday's high day or crack yesterday's low of day? Like, where are we going next to the long side? So I would say with BA, next area to the long side is going to be up towards around 240.79. You've hit that level several times, right? High a day, right? The candle close, high a day, high a day, high a day, high a day. Tons of resistance at 240.79. So I would say that would be your next target to the long side there on BA. Where could we go to the short side? Again, if we fail to actually break and move higher, I would say back down around 223.93 on BA. I mean, that's a level from the daily, right? 223.93, but I would actually bring it up a little bit into this area of resistance and support from Wednesday's session. That's right around 227.89, right? So if you break resistance, hold that as support and move higher, you have just about what is that? 1, 2, maybe 2 to 3 points of potential to the long side if we get a break and retest for the next leg up today. Crack yesterday's low of day, stay below it as resistance, we could fade and fall down to 227.87. So again, that's about almost 4 points to the downside, right? So again, there's like 4 potential ways to trade this. That's it. There's 4 potential ways. And you just got to be patient, wait for there to be a setup in the first place. And if there's a setup, attack it, right? Setup number 1 is going to be it comes up yesterday's high a day, doesn't break above, you get short. Setup number 2 is going to be it opens, comes down to yesterday's low of day, bounces and gives you confirmation, and you play it long, right? Again, really simple stuff. You know, trade number 3 is going to be it comes up to yesterday's high a day, breaks above it, holds above it. You play it long into your next level of resistance along a break and retest, right? And then trade idea number 4, we come down to yesterday's low of day, we fail to hold above it, we crack it and retest, you get confirmation for the short, then you play it down into your next level of 227.87, right? It's like there's 4 potentials here with BA. Anything can happen, but you've already done everything you can do as a trader. What have you done? You've come in, you've identified BA has a lot of hype and volume over the last few days because of earnings. There's a tension here, right? So, hey, there's a stock that has more volume than it normally does. There is eyeballs on the stock, right? There's traders here. You've done your job and you've identified a stock that has potential to move, right? Next step, you've done your due diligence. You've marked up all your levels. You've gotten as prepared as possible. You've done your job, right? And then you've built hypothetical trade plans. Like, if this happens, I will do this. If this happens, I will do this. And you've done that. So all you can really do now is wait for the market to come to you, right? It's like, I got my levels marked up. I have an idea of what strategies could take place at levels. So I just got to be patient, wait for the market to open, BA to come up or down to one of these levels, and then wait for confirmation and wait for there to be a setup. And once I see that confirmation and that setup, I already know what I want to look for. I already know where I want to get long. I know where my target's going to be. You're already prepared. But right now, you're really just sitting on your hands, waiting for there to be a killer setup to really present itself, at the start of the day. The last thing that I would say to do here on BA is go back to yesterday's high a day and run a downtrend here on BA. That's something else I would do as well, is run a downtrend here on BA, and let's see if this downtrend is going to be respected today. Okay. And let's just see if we open and respect that downtrend, it gives us another level to possibly trade off of if there's setups and if there's opportunity. Right. So that would be Ticker BA, baby. All right, BA. AJ with SIGA, SIGA. I like SIGA, and I actually liked it so much, I posted it up inside of Levels chat today. So you already know my game plans today on SIGA. Trade plan number one on SIGA is I'm looking to get long back down here at 625 support, stops under $6 with a first target of $7. Okay. Second target here on SIGA would be up towards around 787. And then my third target today on SIGA would be up towards around 842. And again, that's looking for entries back down at this 625 support level, which we got down towards around 642. So not quite there, right? And then we have trade plan number two is we don't make it down to 625. Okay. If we just go ahead and break that resistance level, right here between 690 to $7, we have resistance. If we just come up and break that level and we see a proper healthy pullback to retest that resistance level as support, it's a simple break and retest. I would look to get long around that potential support level if it's broken, right? For the leg up to 787 and then that 842 level, right? So two trade plan ideas here on SIGA. And SIGA looks great. It's a top gaining stock, right? It was leading the board at one point. Now it's not. It's only up 27%, but there's a lot of great potential. And you take a look at the time frame, there's a lot of potential to run today, right? There's potential for this stuff to do. But again, there's a lot of resistance overhead, and I want to stress that is there is a good deal of resistance up between that 690 to $7. You also have the 200-day moving average at 680. So there's even more resistance between that 680 to $7 level. So it may not break that level, right? Trade plan number two may not ever really play on out because there's a lot of resistance up here, but at least being able to catch this off support for the run up into resistance looks pretty good. And the stops would be nice and tight as well. Like I know the trade plan said stops under 6, but like I'm going to be honest with you, I wouldn't put my stops under 6. I'm saying put stops under 6, right? Because it still gives you a 2-to-1 setup. And that's how I structure these plans, this minimum 2-to-1, but to also give you guys breathing room on your trade so you're not prematurely stopped out. Like for me, if it's going to hold 625 support, it's going to hold 625 support. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If it cracks 625, it's probably going to come down below 6 and stop me out anyway, right? That's how I feel, and that's what I think, right? So I'm getting out 10 to 15 cents if it comes against me. So I would actually probably have a 10 to 15 cent stop loss personally, right? Because again, I'm looking at price action and volume, and I'm taking a lot of things into consideration at that time during that trade. With that $697 target, I'm looking at a 4-to-1 to a 5-to-1 setup by reducing my risk just a little bit to, again, no more than like 10 to 15 cents. But there is good potential here with SIGA. And again, as long as it holds 625, I'm interested in getting long for that leg on back up into all of that resistance between, again, 690 and $7 there on SIGA. But again, all of that's been posted inside of Levels for you guys this morning. All right. So good stuff. Texas, what's up, brother, man? AZN, let's take a look at AZN real quick, and we may have time for one more after this. So AZN, let's get an idea. I mean, there's this massive gap here, right? There's this massive gap here on the daily. So that's going to be a level that really just stands out to me at first glance is number one, this massive gap down, but you actually have this gap up before that big gap down. So I'm going to mark up this gap. This candle right here is definitely of concern to me, right? Because this was the candle that formed right before that massive gap down. So that red candle right here from Friday, June 30th, that's a significant level for me. That's going to be an area of resistance and an area of concern. And you take a look at that candle, it lines up with a lot of points, right? You got the gap up low of day, low of day, low of day, high of day, right before that massive gap down. Those are some definite key areas of resistance. And right now, it's really hard to say, Texas, because, there's not a lot of volume here in pre-market. So I would actually have to come back and do more analysis on this, like 5 to 10 minutes into the day when it's actually moving. There's volume. it would give me a really better idea of like, are these levels being respected? And do we have trades around these levels? There's just not enough pre-market data for me to be like, yeah, if we hold this level, let's take it long. Like, I would rather wait 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes at the start of the day, actually let the stock move a little bit, develop a little bit, give me some more clarity, then go from there to say, hey, do we have any potential for a trade today? But all I would say is there is a lot of resistance at 71.89. There is a lot of resistance at the 71.89 level. And if we can't break above and hold above 71.89, we've got potential to pull back, right? There's potential to come back down towards around $70 today over on AZN. All right. So I would just keep it on watch around that 71.89 level. And like I said, if it can't break above, it'll probably come back down to around $70, 70.14, right? That was that gap. Or I'm sorry, that was the low of day here prior to that big gap. So yeah, again, there's just not a lot going on in pre-market for me to feel super confident behind anything here and be like, yeah, if it does this, it does that. Yeah, it's a tough one. I need to see a little bit more data, in my opinion, when the market opens. But we'll definitely take another look at it, 15 minutes in for sure. All right. So a lot of stocks reviewed today. A lot of you guys are all set, ready to rock and roll. You guys are prepared. I need about, 10 minutes to go through our main watch list today. And again, make sure you guys are all set, ready to rock with the SPY, the Qs primarily, and then my top option watches for today. So, we're going to keep it simple on the SPY, guys. All right. That zone from yesterday on the SPY is the same zone that I have identified today, right? So this zone right up here between like 456.40 and 457, that level that we identified yesterday, that is going to be a pretty strong level of resistance if we get there. And I say if we get there because we're doing something in pre-market with 8 minutes to go before the market opens. We may not get there, and here's why. We have this downtrend from yesterday that was a beautiful 0.3 rejection off this downtrend. I mean, we hit 0.3 of that downtrend and just dumped yesterday. What are we doing right now? We're sitting right at that trend line again, and we see it being respected. So again, we could break the downtrend and rip into that zone of resistance. That's definitely a possibility. And if that takes place and that downtrend breaks, like, hey, you could take it long into that zone if you really want to, right? And then if that zone fails to hold, like, I would expect to see us start to really drop on back down into yesterday's close and fill this gap, because we're going to be leaving a gap here on the daily from yesterday's close to, where we're opening, right? We could close that gap to the downside if we fail to break through this zone of resistance and move higher, right? So one thing we could see here with the SPY is the SPY breaks this downtrend. You get long in this zone. If the zone holds on up as support, you get long back up to yesterday's levels, right? You get long into this lower high right around 458.55, and then these highs right here, right? That's trade idea number one. Another trade idea is, same thing, right? Breaks this downtrend, rips up inside of this zone, but let's say it's not breaking through it and you actually see more resistance than support, more sellers than buyers, and you see weakness here. That's when you would get out of your long position if you were long, hypothetically, and then start considering a short position inside of this zone of resistance here on the SPY. And again, that zone is between 456.42, right around 457, right? You see, good price action that suggests sellers are in control. It's going to start rolling on over. Hey, you can get short inside of this zone of resistance for the gap fill, which is going to be back down at like 452.50. That's yesterday's close. And we could come down and close that gap from yesterday, right? Or we never make it up to that zone. And this downtrend actually holds the SPY down out of the gate at the start of the day. If we fail to break this downtrend, we're not moving up inside of that zone. We'll probably start to drop and close that gap at the start of the day. So it really just comes down to this trend line. If we break that trend line, this is where we're going. And when we get here, what's happening? Is this zone turning into support so we can take it long? Or is this zone turning into resistance where we can take it short? We don't know yet. We have to wait for the stock to get there and make a decision, right? And then if we are unable to break this downtrend and we see that there's a lot of resistance here at the start of the day, we could look to just get short at the start of the day, back down to yesterday's close at 452.49 here on the SPY. So you guys got to keep this on high watch right at this downtrend, right? And we see it's a beautiful downtrend. It hit it beautifully yesterday in pre-market. We had all of those lower highs at the start of the day, came back up, smacked that downtrend before that massive drop. This is a big area of concern, is going to be that downtrend. You can't break above it at the start of the day. You can play puts for a nice drop back down to yesterday's close. If you break through that downtrend, you can play it long into resistance, or what I'm going to do is wait for it to get to that resistance level and then see what happens. If it's support, I'll play it long. If it's confirmed resistance, I'll play it short. I'm probably not going to trade it off the trend line, but that doesn't mean that you guys don't see something to where you want to get in around the trend line. I'm personally just going to wait for that zone up here to get hit. That's my idea, and that's how I want to wait for the market to come to me today. All right. And then let's go ahead and take a look at the Qs real quick. So the Qs are actually trying to hold their zone of resistance like as support. So you take a look at the SPY's below a lot of resistance. You take a look at the Qs are actually breaking through a lot of its resistance at this point in time. But there's a lot of resistance overhead on the Qs, right? There's a lot right here at like 381.34. So yeah, we may be breaking and trying to hold this initial zone of, daily resistance as support. But at the same time, I mean, we're definitely going to struggle to get above this 381.39 level. We came down and bounced off this level 1, 2, 3 times yesterday, and it was great support, right? It was great support yesterday. So this is going to be a very key area of resistance. So just because we see that zone holding as support doesn't necessarily mean we get long. Why am I not getting long? Because there's just not enough potential to the upside, in my opinion. It's like, yeah, I get long here. Okay, where can it go into all of these lows? So I'm like, I can make a whopping like dollar to the upside, but the risk is a lot more, in my opinion, right? You would have a lot more risk than reward. And there's just not a lot of upside potential here to go ahead and get in at this level as support. So I actually just want to put more focus on the SPY, right? If the SPY does hit one of these two levels and starts to drop, right, that's going to probably pull the Qs back below the zone. And then we could properly see that zone turn into resistance and then feel super confident to get short on the Qs if we see that type of development in that type of setup, right? So yesterday, I was telling you guys, I'm not really looking at the SPY. I'm looking at the Qs for a couple of different reasons. Really just came down to location, right? The location on the Qs was a lot better than the location on the SPY. And so we said, hey, we're probably going to watch the Qs, not the SPY. That was the right decision because the Qs gave us exceptional setups yesterday. Today, we're flip-flopping it. I'm actually more or less going to watch the SPY today versus the Qs because of the SPY's location looks a lot better, right? I think there's better potential, and it's just a little bit more clear and clean here on the SPY compared to the Qs, right? So I'm actually going to put more focus here today on the SPY at these resistance levels. Still peak at the Qs periodically, but I like the way that the SPY's moving and setting up, and really where the SPY's located compared to the Qs. I see better potential for some cleaner setups today on SPY. All right. I'm watching Meta today, just so you guys are fully aware. I think Meta has some, decent potential. I'm watching this level of resistance on the daily. That level of resistance is up towards around like 318.70. So if we see this zone right here, hold Meta down as resistance, I want to get short because we have a gap to fill, right? There's this big gap. We have yesterday, the gap up, yesterday's low of day, officially creating this gap that could get filled to the downside on Meta. So if we can't break above this area of resistance and we start to roll on over, I want to get short down the 310. And if we ever enter this gap zone, I know we could fill the gap down around 302. So I am watching Meta today as I think there could be some really good potential. All right. Google, G-O-O-G. Really simple stuff here. I'm just watching this downtrend at the start of the day on Google, right? I see a great deal of potential to the downside, right? I see a lot of room to the downside if we get rejected off this downtrend. So if we open on up here on Google, we hit this downtrend, and if we can't break above, I see great potential for this stock to be able to fall back down the 129.50 and then down here towards around 128.70. So if we fail to break this downtrend, I actually want to get short here on Google at the start of the day. So keep that one on high watch, guys. All right. We'll talk about Netflix a little bit more if it sets up. I'm not going to waste your time with it. And then I'll talk to you guys a little bit more about CRM if it sets up as well. I'm not going to waste your time with it, but Google was a top stock to be watching. And then Meta is a top stock for me to be watching as well. So those are my top 2 option plays for today, followed by the SPY at this downtrend. And hey, guys, SPY right now, we may have a trade right at the start of the day because we're hitting that downtrend. So SPY, today's expirations, we're looking at a 454 puts. Now, 455s. 455 puts. And yes, I would look for a trade at the start of the day off this downtrend if it fails to break above. That's it. If this first candle would have been red and we saw that rejection at the downtrend, I would have pulled the trigger. Absolutely. But again, I waited for the first candle to close. We're actually breaking that downtrend. And again, I'm completely flat. So you guys can see I've had no trades today so far. So I am flat right now at this point in time. So, can I put a screenshot of the SPY in chat? Yeah, man. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a screenshot of the SPY. Copies the image. Post it on up. There you go, baby. Let's go. Market is open. We are live, and we are going to have a kick-ass day, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I said it live. I cursed. Censor me. Block me. Kick-ass day. I am getting some of those puts on the SPY because we came back below the trend line, guys. So I'm going to start a little bit of a position here on SPY with just 10 contracts, right? We broke up over 456. We know 456 was resistance as well. We spiked on up and we had a pretty strong rejection, right? Here's high a day at 456.15. Pretty big rejection here, back below 456, and it was falling back below the trend line. There's great potential to see this thing drop. If it doesn't drop, my stop's nice and tight. You know what I mean? My stop is nice and tight. I'm not aggressive on my position. But again, that strong rejection back below 456 and back below that trend line is why I went ahead and just jumped into about 10 contracts to see if we start to follow through and drop on down here just a little bit to start the day. Because we are sitting at, again, there's a lot of resistance overhead as well. And again, we fell back below that trend line and 456. So that's why I went ahead and jumped in with about 10 contracts short. And if we break high a day, I'll just go ahead and get out. But I see potential for a quick scalp at the start of the day. And this is a me trade, guys, right? I jumped in, didn't really break it down, call it out, because again, this is a me trade. We're 3 minutes into the day, can be a little bit riskier. And I'm not going to put my name behind this and have anybody follow me into a trade where, again, I'm just jumping in and we're all set, ready to rock, guys. But you guys know why I'm in. And like I said, if we start breaking high a day, I'll just go ahead and get out because we're probably going to 457. And that's fine. Right? That's fine. There was 2 ways I wanted to trade the SPY today. Right? Number 1, getting rejected at the downtrend. What did I want to do? I wanted to get short. Right? We're seeing good price action at the downtrend, and it does suggest there is potential to the downside. Now, if the downtrend breaks, I get stopped out for a small loss, wait for the market to come up into the zone, right? And then look for a rejection. And I know I said I probably wouldn't be trading off this downtrend at the start of the day. I want to see it inside of the zone. But after seeing that strong rejection here at the start of the day, back below that trend line, you know, it's pretty tempting. I like the price action. I like that drop back below a couple key levels. You know, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm not super aggressive, but I'll take 5 to 10 contracts here at the start of the day. If it drops, it drops. Great. We can lock in some quick profits. If not, hey, teeny loss. Really don't want to see it back above like 456. You know, if it starts breaking 456, it'll probably break high a day and get up to that 457. So I will not be holding this over 456, guys. Starting to see the drop here on the SPY. Starting to get a little bit of a drop here. Let's see if we can follow through a little bit. And we're just going to look to play this down to like 454 first, right? 450. It could actually go a little bit lower, but, I'm going to say 454 would be like the first main target. Actually, no, let's go 455. It's psychological, and it's a strong psychological level as well, right? 455 is a pretty strong psychological level. So we're going to look to take some profits at that 455 level because it is strong, it is psychological, and that's a great area to start scaling out of the trade. So right now, we're up on the trade itself. We pulled the trigger when the stock's price was at like 455.85. The stock's price is down about 20 cents, 25 cents, 30 cents per share. We're up about $60. Again, nothing crazy. $75, nothing crazy. And now we just try and be patient on this, right? It's such a small position at the start of the day that I'm willing to be patient and actually see if we follow through a little bit to the downside, at least down to that 455 level. And again, we hit that downtrend. We're getting rejected, and we look pretty weak right now at this point in time. So, yeah, we're up about $100 too. So not a bad little trade to start the day, guys. Again, we just want to see it come down to 455. We're up 125. Not bad. Starting off the day strong. All right, we're starting to see some decent profits. Here we go. Start taking profit. We're getting close to the target, guys. We're getting close to that target. We are overextended to the downside as well, so we're due to bounce. I'm going to close it. I'm out, guys. I'm out. And the reason I got out is, let's be real, we're overextended to the downside, and it's due to bounce. That was a pretty quick drop, a lot quicker than I thought. It went from 456 to 455.20. We dropped 80 cents in 3 minutes. That was a pretty quick drop. I wasn't expecting that full nearly dollar drop in that amount of time. I was thinking maybe 10 minutes, but it dropped straight down pretty quick. And when we see the SPY overextended like that, we have that big drop really quick, especially at the start of the day when there's a lot of volatility, right? And it's coming down into a pretty good support level, it's probably going to bounce and pop. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in my 165 on those 10 contracts. And I mean, from a percentage standpoint, it was a great trade, right? That was a 30% trade, guys, right? 60 cents a piece for those contracts. So what's 10%, right? That would be $6. So what did we make on this trade? We got about $18 a contract, right? That's right around 30% return in about 3 minutes of trading on only 10 contracts. So not a bad way to start the day, baby. Not a bad way to start the day. You made 250. Good job, man. It was a simple trade. The risk is low and the reward's there. I mean, that's that. It's going to hit the trend line and drop, or it's going to break the trend line and rip. So if you get in at the trend line and it doesn't dump, you're getting stopped out for a small loss. But if it does start to drop, which it is, you can make some quick bucks. So again, simple stuff there off that downtrend, guys. Nice little trade to start the day. Made $500 on the same trade. Woo! Tom made $1,000. Jeez. Y'all are on something right now. Yeah, it does look like the scanners are frozen. Let's do a refresh real quick on those scanners. Y'all are making money and you're not even part of the community? I'm not coming on TikTok Live anymore. Makes no sense. I'm joking. Yeah, so I guess Trade Ideas is just having some issues here. They should update, right? They should update, but right now we can clearly see that they are frozen right now. Wow, Catherine grabbed some SPY puts here at the start of the day. $1,000 from Catherine inside of chat. Let's get it. Woo! Let's go. I love it, baby. Man, that was a really good trade. I mean, really breaking down the SPY in a really simple fashion this morning, right? And it's just a simple trend line. We knew the SPY was going to do one of two things. The SPY is going to get rejected off the downtrend and drop, or it's going to break this downtrend and rip into resistance. We were just waiting for confirmation to get long for the break or short for the rejection, right? That was it. That was our analysis. So what did we do, right? Set back, market opened, okay? Waiting for confirmation. And this right here was confirmation for me. We tried to break 456. We started to break 456, and then it just goes, I mean, literally in the blink of an eye, just comes right back below 456 and right back below that trend line. So I go ahead and jump in for the continuation leg down to 455, right? We try and push up, get rejected. Try to push up, get rejected, and then we get our move. So our entries were right at the downtrend, stops over those highs. We had a target down here at 455. We took profit early because we were very extended to the downside, right? We had a 4-minute drop straight down, almost $1. We know that it's due to bounce. I know we were 20 cents away from our target, but we know that the stock's probably going to bounce. So we went ahead and cut that trade. Great idea. It bounced. So doing the right thing, taking profit, not being greedy. And then check this out, right? Great trade. Not even 10 minutes into the day, I'm locking in 165. You got Johnny on the small account locking in $22. You got Catherine today locking in $967 on SPY puts in 10 minutes of work. I mean, Catherine's blown me out of the water. Johnny's been crushing it with a small account. Let's go. And if anybody else has any profits, get them posted up inside of Profits Chat, and let's get people fired up right now because we're starting off the day strong, and we're going to end the week strong as well, team. So good stuff overall. Now what do? We sit back and wait for the next trade. That's it. Go up, get up, walk around. I don't know what you guys want to do, but go walk around for a couple minutes. Celebrate those great trades, right? That's amazing stuff, amazing work. Go celebrate. Go, woo, I did great. Now come back, get refocused, and wait for the market to come to you and wait for the market to set up. And that's all we're doing right now is waiting for the next best opportunity here. Hopefully someone grabbed SIGA off 625. I don't know what to tell you, but hopefully someone was able to get in on SAGA or on SIGA at 625. And I mean, we did post this one up here this morning inside of levels, and we had 2 trade plans. And the first one was entries at 625. And so you already had a really big move, right? You had a pretty strong move here on SIGA, and you did hit 1-to-1. So you guys are fully aware. And, that's something I highly recommend everybody implement within their trading is taking profits at 1-to-1. I don't care if you go break even at that point in time. You don't have to go break even. But taking some profits at 1-to-1 is going to completely help you guys and really help you guys as traders and make more money, right? So if I'm getting into a trade at 625 and I'm risking 25 cents, I want to make at least 50 to 75 cents to the upside $1. The more, the better, right? The stock has potential to give me 75 cents of reward with 25 cents of risk. That's a 3-to-1. It has that potential. But that doesn't mean I'm not taking profits until it gets that 75 cents. I'm taking profits along the way. And something that's really helped me as a trader make more money in the market and reduce my losses is taking profits when I hit 1-to-1. Okay, not all of it, but a little bit. Right? So I'm risking 25 cents. When I make 25 cents of reward, I start taking profits. When I hit 50 cents of reward, I start taking profits. When I hit target, I'm all out, but I'm taking profits along the move on up. And something that I will do is I will take my stop loss and move it to break even. That's what I do. So if I'm risking 25 cents and I get my first 1-to-1, and that's a scale out point for me, I do go right away to break even on the remainder of my position, but I'll still scale out if we continue to rip higher. Eventually, the stock comes down, stops me out at break even on the remainder of my position, but I'm taking 50, 60, 70% of my position along the way up. And sometimes we hit targets and we get 100% of our position off the table for profit, right? But here's something I want to explain real quick is like, even if you don't, right, move your stop to break even, you're still going to walk away break even on the trade, which is cool. So by taking profit at 1-to-1, let's say you took half your position at 1-to-1, so you locked in 50% of your position for 25 cents of profit, you have 50% left with a 25 cent stop loss. So if the stock were to come down and stop you out, you would actually give back the gains that you had locked in. So you would break even on the trade. So like that's best case scenario, right? For this example of scaling out is like you taking half your position at 1-to-1, even if you don't move your stop loss and you keep it where it's at, worst case scenario, right? You break even on the trade. You don't make anything, you don't lose anything. But I like to make money, right? And I don't like to go from being up $200, being back down the break even or losing. Like I want to secure the money that I have in the market. The market's erratic. The market's crazy. I do go break even very quickly. A lot of the times I do get stopped out at break even. But when I get stopped out at break even, I'm happy that I got stopped out at break even because 80% of the time the stock comes down even further. And I'm like, oh, okay, good decision. I made some money, right? So again, with SIGA, your trade plan this morning, again, was get long at 625, stops under 6 with a target at 7. It's a 3-to-1 setup. But that doesn't mean you're just sitting here doing nothing until the stock hits your target. I highly, highly, highly recommend everybody start scaling out when they hit 1-to-1, when they hit 2-to-1, right? When you're making your risk times two, whatever the case is, like getting a good habit of taking profits when the stock is moving, especially penny stocks, right? Take profits into the move, take profits into strength on penny stocks, because moments later, you may see strength, right? But then you get a massive dump. And this is why we take profits quick on penny stocks. Look at this nice big push. Look at that bull flag. Look at that bull flag break. Guarantee traders saw a bull flag on SIGA. Guarantee bull flag traders got in because there was confirmation, right? It broke out of the bull flag with very strong volume, right? That's a bull flag. That's a typical retail formation. And look what happened. Dumped instantaneously, right? You see strength, you see a bullish setup, and then it dumps on you. This is why we take profits quick when it comes to penny stocks. And this is why we don't trade bull flags, bear flags, those typical retail formate. We don't trade those because we know they are extremely manipulated, and it's not worth it. So always scale out when you're at 1-to-1, guys. Highly recommend it. You're going to notice you're making more money in the market. And that was really pertaining to anybody that may be in SIGA right now, because I assume there's some traders in SIGA. So I wanted to make sure that you guys are doing the right thing, taking profit. I love it. Check that, Catherine. This is amazing. I absolutely love seeing this. I mean, this is cool, right? Catherine using trading as a platform to do other things, right? Yeah, it could be a stream of income. I know she trades her Roth. She trades other accounts as well, but check this out. This is amazing. And this is what I stress a lot. Like, utilize trading as like a platform to do other things that you want to do. Catherine, going to the gym and sleeping. Got some work tonight. All right. Have a great weekend. July's profits has paid off fall tuition for her daughters. No student loans for her kids. Isn't that just amazing? To be able to be in a position to have a skill set, to be able to make money, to take that money, pay your kids college tuition so they're now not in debt, they're getting a great education, and you could also take that skill set and, like she does, apply it to her Roth, setting herself up for more retirement when it comes down. Dude, it's just so amazing to see that. Like, just years ago, didn't know a lot about day trading, right? 2-3 years later, making enough money to pay off her daughter's tuition and still trade the Roth to only just add more money to compound over the years for retirement, and still has a great job that she loves and just does this very, passively, not really passively, but not spending 8 hours a day to do this, coming in for an hour a day and being able to make $1,000, $500. It's amazing to see that, guys. So, use that as inspiration, guys. Like, put your nose down, right? We all start at day one. We all come in not knowing anything about trading stocks. But if you just put your nose down and you take this serious and you show up and you take initiative and apply yourself, like, at some point you will start to see that level of success that you want to see. You'll be able to make enough money to start a business. You'll make enough money to get into real estate. You'll make enough money to purchase a home, to take trips with your family, to make memories, right? To pay off your kids' college tuition, whatever. Like, you can get to that point. We've all started at day one, right? We were just where you are, and you just got to put your nose down and work hard. But amazing stuff, Catherine. That's awesome. That's absolutely insane. I love it. I love seeing stuff like that. How's Meta looking? Is Meta giving us anything yet? Meta's not giving us anything just yet. I want to take a closer look here at Google. And so Google filled the gap yesterday, guys. I want to point this out. We had this gap here on Google identified yesterday. You see, yesterday we came inside of that gap level and we dumped, right? We came up into that zone to the penny and we couldn't break through it. And we ended up dumping hard. We are getting back up into this gap zone. And so if we can't break through it, at some point it may set up for a short. And we definitely want to keep it on watch for a possible short here on Google inside of this gap zone that we're getting very, very close to right now. So let's keep this one on high watch, guys. Nothing here on Netflix. Nothing yet on CRM. Again, we have an idea of what to expect here on Google. And then Meta. Meta right now is coming back into a lot of this daily resistance. So I'm curious to see if Meta can break above this high. Right? There's a good deal of resistance here. I marked it up with a zone, But right now, we're coming back into this high. And I'm curious, like, can Meta break this high and push higher? If not, we're probably going to start to drop back down to 310. Like, I want to get short on Meta here, guys. I really want to get short on Meta at this 318.70 resistance level. So let's go today's expiration. Let's just go with like a 310 put. 310 puts. Oh, those are too cheap. Those are too cheap. Yeah, because like, what's the odds of it really getting down to 310? 315s. 315. Yeah, 315s are more realistic. We're going to go with some 315s here on Meta at this level of resistance, guys. So I want to start scaling in here at resistance on Meta. I would literally have 70 cents of risk. If it gets up to like 319 or over 319, I would stop out. But I mean, I like this area of resistance, right? It's like back into this very key area of resistance. And I know that one of two things are going to happen. It's going to hit this level and get rejected and drop, which we just saw it hit that level to the penny, get rejected and drop, and it's going to follow through. That's what's going to happen, number one. Number two, it's going to break that level and continue to push higher, and my loss is really, really small. So if you really think about it, right, I'm getting short at resistance. We know if resistance holds the stock down and we drop, I mean, realistically, we can come back down to low of day, right? That's lower than 315. And we know that we don't need all that much risk, right? Risk $1 to make 4 to 5 points to the downside. Resistance is resistance. It's either going to hold below resistance and then dump, or it's going to break it and rip, right? Your stop is $1. Your reward is 4 to 5. Risk reward's there. It's a key area of resistance, and we already saw, price react at that level. We came up and hit it to the penny and dropped very quickly. So we already saw a price reaction, at that level here on Meta. And so this is a great area, in my opinion, to see Meta fail to break above and be able to pull back a little bit. But like I said, if it breaks that level, okay, I'll take my small loss. That's okay. Very small loss. And I'm scaling in as well. I'm not taking 30 contracts. I'm taking 5. I'm scaling into that position. And so, yeah, the 1 minute's above, but I'm really looking at the 5 minute here as well for confirmation. And the 5 minute still has, about 3 minutes to close on out. Josie, I thought I saw an inverse ETF, an inverse Head and Shoulders on the SPY. You took it and it worked out, but could you tell me if that was in fact an inverse Head and Shoulders? All right. At first glance, I don't really see a crystal clear one, but I think I have an idea of what you were seeing. But I don't think it was a high probability one, right? It worked. That's fantastic, but I don't think your probabilities were quite, up there, like 80% probabilities. But I think I see what you see. And if I'm not mistaken, you probably saw this low, this lower low, and this higher low. And so you were thinking maybe this is an inverse Head and Shoulders. Are we on the same page here? Is like, that's what you were seeing? That's what you saw? Okay, cool. So, you're definitely seeing development like an inverse Head and Shoulders. But one big thing with inverse Head and Shoulders, number one, location, right? Number two, the neckline. So it's really, really important. Location and the neckline. So typically when we see inverse Head and Shoulders, what do they represent? They represent reversals to the long side. So the highest probability inverse Head and Shoulders occur at support levels. Was this a support level? No, it was actually closer to resistance than support. So that reduces the probabilities because, again, it's not occurring at a fantastic level of support. Number one, location is very, very, very important. All right. Number two, the neckline. The best of the best inverse Head and Shoulders have a downtrend, right? The highs slope to the downside. So you get left shoulder, head, right shoulder. But that trend line, the neckline that you connect against the highs, it's a downtrend. It's sloping down. Here, it was sloping to the upside. Something else that also reduces the probabilities of a inverse head and shoulders. So it's not an 80-20. You're probably sitting at like 60% odds here. So again, the probabilities aren't fantastic, but I mean, it worked out, right? And as long as like this, like, let's say you took 10 of these setups and it was a coin toss, it was 50-50. Let's just say like the probabilities are 50-50, right? And you took 10 of those trades. As long as your risk reward is substantial, like you'll make money. If you're trading 1-to-1s, well, yeah, you can't trade 50% probability setups, right? Because you're going to break even. It's got to be minimum 2-to-1 to make some money. 3-to-1, 4-to-1, you can get away with trading setups that have 50% odds of playing out. And I would say this type of inverse head and shoulders, right, is probably a coin toss. In my opinion, it's 50-50 because those two things, location and trend line, just really do reduce the probabilities. So even if it was, 50%, you could trade these all day knowing that you're going to be wrong on half your trades. You can't let that affect you mentally that you're losing on half your trades. But as long as you're identifying like 1 to 3 setups, you'll still make money. Like if your average loser is 100, right, but your average winner is 300, if you lose on, 5 trades, what are you losing? $500. But if you win on, right, 5 trades, you're making 1,500. So between those 2 trades, you're still locking in $1,000. So if all of these setups, you had plans established and they all had 3-to-1 realistic potential, right? That's 1-to-3. It's 3-to-1. And they all had a minimum of 3-to-1 with a 50% win rate, right? You'll still make money. If your average loser is $100, your average winner is 3 times greater than your risk. Between 10 trades, even at a 50% win rate, like you're still making money. So that may be something that works for you, right? So again, just kind of put that in perspective. Just because I say, you know what, it wasn't an 80-20 doesn't mean it's not tradable, right? It could be tradable. It could be something that pays out consistently, even with 50% odds, as long as your risk reward is there. Obviously better than a 2-to-1. Hope, the goal is 3-to-1, 4-to-1, right? So yeah, overall, great trade. You got in, you locked in your profits, you weren't greedy. Hopefully you had great 2-to-1 potential minimum. And if so, you can get away with trading these types of setups and be successful and be profitable. Meta long goes to 352. Let's go look at Meta real quick, right? So I'm still holding the short on Meta. Again, I was too busy looking at the SPY. But again, I've been watching my P&L because again, I'm just looking at like how much I want to risk on the trade. And right now I'm only down like $60. So yeah, I mean, if Meta, right, holds this level of support, it can move up higher. Absolutely. Right. I mean, it's a decent support level, decent resistance level. It's definitely an area where you're seeing some price reaction, right? You're seeing the stock react at that level as resistance, as support. And so we're breaking resistance and we're pulling back into that level to test it as support. So 100%, if this resistance level that we identified on the daily indeed turns into support, where are we going next on Meta? Well, I would say back up towards around yesterday's high a day. Yeah, 325 on Meta. 352, I think, is a little extreme, right? To call a 352 target. I mean, I think long term, sure. Months to come, yeah, in months to come, 352. But if you're looking just for a day trade today, I would say 325. And maybe you got those backwards. Maybe you meant to say 325. I'd say 352 today is highly unrealistic, right? To get up into the 350s. That'd be a massive, massive move. And we would need a catalyst, right, to see it all the way up at that 352 level today. But I would say in the weeks and months to come, yeah, you could see Meta continue to push up into the 352s. There's a lot of daily resistance up there. So that's a realistic target, not as a day trade, right? As a day trade, your realistic targets are going to be looking at yesterday's levels. So right here, a lot of resistance at 320.90. That's going to be a target, right? You got a lot of this resistance right here from yesterday, right? A lot of resistance here from yesterday, right around 324. That would be a target. And then 325 there on Meta. If we hold 318.70. So if we hold 318.70, yes, we can definitely see this break, retest, and see the next leg up. So if we start to see this level actually turn support, which it's trying, and we start to see a push, I'm going to have to go ahead and close my trade. If we start to fall back below 318.70. I would simply look to add to my position for the drop on down. I'm still looking at like 316.70 being a target to the downside if we do continue the drop. I'm watching the SPY, and the SPY is hitting resistance and starting to pull back a little bit. I would love to see the SPY pull back off this resistance level. QQQ still actually shows a little bit of strength to the long side. So that may hurt Meta, right? Meta probably will do its own thing to a certain extent, but if we see the Qs rip and the SPY rip, it's most likely going to pull Meta up as well. If see the Qs dump and the SPY dump, we'll probably see that affect Meta to a certain extent as well. So it's like if we start to see the Qs breaking into a new high a day, and same thing with the SPY, that's going to pull up Meta. Meta's already holding support, so I would have to cut that trade. But if we see the SPY start to drop and the Q start to drop, hey, that may pull back Meta down below that support level as well. And I'm happy to still hold this short position for a little bit longer. That's all you need is a couple good reliable setups, then wait for your trade to present itself. Yeah, all you need to do is like learn support resistance, supply demand, and have high conviction in your levels that you identify in the morning to get prepared for the day. Like we do on the daily, the weekly, right? We identify these high probability levels and we have high conviction around them. That's step one. Then you have to understand setups and strategies, breaks and retests, cracks and retests, head and shoulders, inverse price action, double tops, you know what I mean? Like understand market, the way the market moves, some strategies and setups that occur at levels of support resistance. And then wait for the market to come to one of your high conviction levels or down to it, whatever the case is. And when the stock is trading at one of your areas that you've identified, like Stir said, all you have to do at that point is just wait for there to be a setup to present itself. If there's not a setup, you don't take the trade. But if you start to see there's a setup at that level, the probabilities are there, right? You're going to notice that 70 to 80% of your trades are winners. And you're going to notice that you're not taking a lot of subpar trades. So, I mean, Qs are still pushing on up. The SPY's still pushing on up. I'm going to have to go in there and close that Meta position here. Right? Especially if you break that high a day. I held it a little too long, right? Didn't take more heat than I wanted because I'm still light on size. So from like a loss standpoint, not even anywhere close to like what I would lose on a trade. But at the same time, I'm not going to hold this all day and let it expire, worthless. I'm still going to have a stop loss, and I have a stop. And right now it's going to be if we break that high a day. It did push up a little bit higher than expected. The Qs are pushing on up, right? The SPY's pushing on up. And you take a look at Meta. Meta has a break and retest. So at this point in time, like this is a bullish setup, right? And this goes into what we talked about a couple of days ago. Is like, how many times have you been in a short? Okay, the trade goes against you. Okay, and it starts to set up for a long, but you don't even notice the stock is setting up long because you're short. You're so focused on getting short confirmation. Oh, this could be a lower high. Oh, what if we crack support? Oh, short, short, short. You're just thinking and looking for short confirmation, right? And then you don't even see the stock setting up for a solid long. So it's like, hey, I see this break and retest. I know that this could start to explode to the upside. I need to keep my stops tight and get ready to cut this trade. And then who's to say maybe I don't flip long off this break and retest? So I'm not so tunnel vision right now. I see the long setup. I see the potential for Meta to move higher, right? And I'm not so just focused on trying to get short confirmation to justify why I should hold this trade, right? I'm fully aware that there's a break and retest and I'm short. Okay, and I know where I'm going to stop out if this break and retest works and follows through. Okay, and if we start to see this break and retest working and following through, obviously there's no need to be sure. I start thinking about getting long on the next best long setup. But at the same time, if this break and retest fails, I still have a small short position on the table and, it'll probably pay out a little bit. So right now you did have your break and retest over that key level of resistance that we identified. And so right now, Meta has great potential to pop above that 320 level and really start to move. And that's where I'm going to have to start, walking away from that trade, because if it does break 320 after it just retested resistance as support, we know that Meta has room, again, up to this 321 level, up towards around 324 and then 325 on Meta. So we know it can explode and continue to rip to the upside. You want to cut that short very, very quick, because you're realizing you're on the wrong side of the trade. It's okay to be on the wrong side of the trade, but it's a different story to stay on the wrong side of the trade. I can't stay on the side of the trade. I'm acknowledging I'm on the wrong side. I know I'm on the wrong side, and I know I need to get out of it, right? I can't stay on the wrong side of the trade knowing that I'm in the wrong side of the trade. So if this candle were to close over that high, I would get out. If you go above yesterday's high on Meta, you go back to January. Where is that upper level at? Yeah, so I mean, if you go over yesterday's high a day, let's say Meta breaks yesterday's high a day. It's like, yeah, where could it go next? Well, the first area that I see on Meta is right there, right? You see the upper shadow at 327.78, rejection. You see this high a day prior to this massive gap down. That is going to be a key significant level, right? Is this high a day prior to that massive gap down that we saw on Meta. That's a very, very significant point. And we have multiple touch points in the past at that level as well, at 327.78. So yeah, Meta break and retest. We have some room up into those levels that we just discussed, yesterday's high a day. And if we start to break yesterday's high a day, the next daily level of resistance on Meta is 327.78, right? And then breaking 327.78, you have room to like 334. Breaking 334, then you start thinking, hey, we can get up into the 350s here on Meta. Yeah, I got to start closing this. And I'm just still watching SPY and Qs because I noticed the SPY is like right at its area of resistance. Like there's a lot of resistance where we're currently at. Like could the SPY move just a little bit more to the upside? It definitely can. But since we're sitting right at this zone of resistance, I'm keeping a close eye on it because I know that if the SPY tops out and starts to drop here, it can pull Meta back down as well. And so that's what I'm looking at to see what the SPY does here. If it does start to drop, hey, Meta could start to pull as well. And then the Qs still have some time, right? QQQ, there's still some room to the upside here. Another about, $1.40 to the upside. So Qs still have some potential to move higher, but SPY is sitting right at a lot of this resistance. And I want to try and be as, patient as possible, but at the same time, not hold a losing trade too long, but still be patient, look at the overall market, see if it does, work out. And then, hey, the fact that I'm not full size and it does maybe set back up, and gives me an opportunity to add, I could always look to, add to this position, which brings my cost basis down since I came into the trade with the mindset of let me scale in. But I'm just looking to see what the SPY is going to do at this resistance level, guys. And so, I'm managing a trade that I'm in, but there is a trade sitting right in front of you. And that's going to be a lower high crack at the trend line on SPY, right? You got this trend line on the SPY, right? If you see the SPY try and bounce here, but fail to put in a higher high, and we ever see a lower high develop on the SPY and we start to crack this uptrend, that's when you could look to get short on the SPY. That would be a lower high crack of the trend line. All right. So if we see that lower high set in and we start to crack that trend line, that's a fantastic setup. And here's why. Not only would it be a lower high crack at the trend line, that's a strategy, right? Lower high crack at the trend line, right? We love those setups. That setup is occurring at our level of resistance, which just increases the probabilities of it working out even more, right? It's occurring in this zone of resistance that we have identified. So if we see that setup take place here on the SPY, right, we get that lower high crack of the trend line, or at any point in time, we just crack this trend line inside of the zone of resistance, that would be killer confirmation to get short here on the SPY for a nice big drop on off. So I'm really curious to see what the SPY is going to be able to do here, over the next couple of minutes. And we are slowly still just grinding to the upside right now, guys. We are just slowly grinding to the upside right now at this point in time. And we could continue to have a nice slow grind on up. But right now, SPY is sitting at some pretty key resistance. If we start to see the crack of this uptrend on the SPY and we start to drop, let's see how that affects other plays that we're looking at. Let's see if that even affects Meta. Alphabet. I mean, Google's starting to roll on over. Let's see if that does, ripple through some of these other stocks. If we see the SPY crack and dump, and then see if that affects the Qs in any way, shape, or form. And then again, some of these other stocks that we're looking at, like Meta, Google, Netflix. So it's worth watching. And the SPY's right at that point in time that it's going to crack and dump, or it's going to sit here, hold and bounce. So if we start to see confirmation on SPY and we get a candle close below this trend line, and we start to drop below 456.37, that's going to start to give you confirmation to get short with stops right around 456.70. And you got some targets down here at 456, right? Underneath these lows. And then, these prior lows are just going to be your targets along the way down. So the SPY did crack this trend line, but again, it never fell below that 456.37. So you want to see the crack of the uptrend, which you got, but you also want to see the price drop below 456.37 here on the SPY.